We are covering the Monk debate between Douglas Murray and I forget who the woman was. She didn't really make much of an impression on me. Versus Mehdi Hasan and Gideon Levy. Now, we covered pretty thoroughly the Dissident Dialogues debate, Brianna Joy Gray versus the Penguin and the Riddler. Russell was in the room that night, and he saw firsthand, experienced in person, the hostility of the crowd. So this Monk debate was co-sponsored by FIRE, which is a free speech advocacy group that tends to traffic in a lot of the same sort of anti-woke discourse that we saw at the Dissident Dialogues. One of the higher ups at FIRE was at one of the panels, right, at the Douchebag Dialogue conference there.
Which one?
One of the guys from FIRE, right, was there.
Yes. He didn't say a fucking word about this subject.
Right. Yeah, indeed.
I was very disappointed by that. So
this little piece here really focuses on the audience response, the bias of the room. So the anti-Zionist side lost this debate. It was a stacked room going in. The resolution is anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism. It was 61% said yes, it is at the outset. 39% said no, it isn't at the outset. So right there, you're talking about over 60-40, the room is on the Zionist side. So here's just an example of Mehdi Hasan battling the audience of the debate.
The propositions that I've sprayed around the word lie and liar, so let's return the compliment. Natasha lied when she talked about UNRWA and terrorism. The UN set up an independent inquiry, asked the Israelis for evidence. I know you don't want to hear this.
He was talking about the accusations against UNRWA, where they accused UNRWA of being sort of systematically responsible, in part at least, for October 7th. That's why we defunded them. Many Western nations defunded them. And then we asked Israel, oh, by the way, do you have any evidence to back that up? Because we just defunded an aid agency as a famine is setting in. And they did not produce the evidence. So that's what he is referencing there. Listen to the roaring boos from the audience when he mentions that fact. That's just a documented fact.
About UNRWA and terrorism. The UN set up an independent inquiry, asked the Israelis for evidence. I know you don't want to hear this. They asked the Israelis, she's parroting propaganda from the Israeli government. The Israeli government was asked to give evidence. They refused to give their evidence. Every Western government, including your own, Canada's, has restarted funding because they looked at the evidence and didn't see it. That's great. I get it. But as Douglas might have once said, facts don't care about your feelings. You can't even get Israeli propaganda straight.
Okay, so this is later in the debate. This is one of his closing monologues. And then we're going to get to the results to see how the audience was moved throughout this process.
Is a very dissident douchebags kind of a crowd.
Oh, yeah. Same dynamic. Absolutely.
Same crowd.
Same exact dynamic.
The Israeli government's own security agency, Shin Bet, investigated what you just said and said, no, we found no evidence that workers from Gaza were involved in the October 7th attack. Oh, Shin Bet are lying. They're booing Shin Bet, the Israeli security service. Got it. All right, let me finish my point. You had a 5-minute speech from your side. Okay, that's Shin Bet. Let me just deal with your wider point here. Douglas and Natasha tonight want to make this entire debate about October 7th. I get it. It's a horror show. But that's not the debate. The debate was about Zionism, and it tells you a lot that they can't find any arguments to say, as Gideon says, why we can't be allowed to criticize a political ideology that is 150 years old, that many Jewish people have criticized from the beginning and continue to do so. They can't tell you why that is. So they focus on October the 7th, which is fine, but if you're going to focus on October 7th, then also focus on what happened since October the 7th, the erasure of Palestinians in this debate, the booing when Gideon mentions what happened to Palestinians. Shameful. I'm sorry to say, it's absolutely shameful and telling about what's going on. And I would say this.
Same experience Brianna had at the Dissident Dialogue. I can't believe the responses in this room.
If we're going to talk about October 7th and what happened since, everyone's a liar. The Hamas health ministry is a liar. Everyone's a liar. Okay. Friend of mine, American doctor, goes to Gaza. Many doctors have gone to Gaza. You've seen them on the news. They're all liars, all Hamas apparently. Friend of mine went to Gaza. He's been to Sudan. He doesn't just use it for whataboutism like Douglas. He's been to Sudan. He's been to Afghanistan. He's worked there. He came back from Gaza and said, I've never seen atrocities like I've seen here. What's happened to children? He's an anti-Semite because he saw children with burn wounds like he's never seen. He saw children with gunshot wounds to the head. To the head, but that's Hamas's fault. Everything is Hamas's fault. So let's talk about war crimes. It is amazing that every human rights group in the world, including Israeli human rights groups like B'Tselem, Gisha, Yeshdin, are all documenting this stuff, but you guys think it's all imaginary. So again, it tells you about what Zionism is. This is not about some abstract ideology of, people trying to settle the land and trying to have it. But as Gideon said, there was an argument to be had in the 1940s, 30s, 20s. Zionism today is what the Palestinians are enduring on a daily, nightly basis in Gaza, in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, in Israel itself. And the erasure of that tells you everything about why we need to be able to talk about what Zionism does to the Palestinians without being smeared as anti-Semites.
There you go. Well said. Now let's see what kind of impact that made on the room. Okay, so you could see, I don't know what 7723 is. I forgot about that because I watched the full debate, but I forget what that number is. Oh, that's the number of people who were open to having their minds changed. That's what they said. Okay, so they said at the beginning, how many of you think anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism? 61% said yes, it is. 39% said no, it isn't. And then I guess 77% of these people, because they're a debate audience, thought they should claim that their minds were open. Yeah. I bet they were. Yeah. But let's see how they were moved.
Vote coming in, 66% in favor of the motion, 34% opposed.
Very satisfied with himself. Douglas Murray wins again. So at the end of the night, 66% believed anti-Zionism was anti-Semitism. So the anti-Zionist team actually lost ground, which in that room, you could imagine that was going to be the case. That's what you call a stacked audience. But despite that, I thought they did pretty well.
They did great.
Yeah.
The fault lies not in them. It lies in these fucking disgusting pigs that they had to try to convince.
Yeah.
And
actually, given the room, it's kind of remarkable that they held the line as much as they did. They only lost 5 points.
It's kind of remarkable they didn't get chased out with pitchforks and torches.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Get matzo brie thrown at them because clearly that fucking audience was stacked. Hasan made the point in his opening statement. This is not about how you feel about the state of Israel. He emphatically pointed out you could be pro-Zionist and be against this resolution because the resolution was specifically not do you support or are you against the state of Israel? Are you for or against the core precepts of Zionism? It was specifically, is Zionism anti-Semitism? This is how absolutely sick, deranged, and dangerous these people are, because I promise you, these same people are going to scream at you about how Trump has to be stopped to save democracy. I know this isn't Canada, but as we know, everyone around the world pays perhaps more attention to our politics than to our own, for good reason, because we sneeze and it creates shockwaves around the world. So everyone's tuned into us in a way that we're like, hang on, England has a parliament. We don't know shit over here, but they're very keyed into what we do. And I promise you, all these people are anti-Trump.
Well, Mehdi actually brought that up to Douglas Murray. He said Douglas Murray's been out here for the last few years parading about what a free speech champion he is. This question is really more about freedom of speech than anything else. It's not a referendum on Israel. It's a referendum on speech. Basically, the question is, can you debate Zionism in good faith without being called a bigot? And Douglas Murray's answer was no, which shows you that all this posturing about free speech, total bullshit, never believed a word of it.
John McWhorter.
Yep.
He was on that panel. I keep mentioning it because I can't wait till they drop that so we can clip it.
Yeah.
Do you think we're past peak woke? I would have thought so until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
All of them were like that at the Dissident Dialogues. The same thing. Oh, the pink hair. They think they stand for something, but they're so naive.
Yep.
All of these guys, and all of them were talking about how anti-woke they were because the Aristotelian tradition of rational discourse and debate and Platonic dialogue. All that shit went out the window October 7th with these people.
Yep, indeed. The question here is,
never meant a word of it.
Yeah, can you debate Zionism without being branded a bigot? That was all that was up for
that was it.
Debate
it was not about whether you support Israel, and they couldn't even do that.
Couldn't even do that. Exactly.
Please clap.